moving right along, let's get into Sprawl 2, where we will compare my all-time greats to my all-time Drakes. Now, what do I mean by that? Excuse me. I'm going to take my all-time favorite Drake albums, well, all the Drake albums and how I rank them, and measure that up and compare them with where I rank my favorite, greatest NBA players. So, for an example, my favorite Kanye album would be My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy, and who I think is the best basketball player of all time would be, well, you're about to find out, I won't spoil it, but I would compare that player with Kanye's Dark Fantasy, and that's what this segment's gonna look like a little bit. So, let's get into it, shall we? For my number 9 greatest album player, I have More Life as Kobe Bryant. Now, not a lot of comparisons here, but we're just getting warmed up. Now, my number 8 album player, I got What a Time to Be Alive as Hakeem Olajuwon. Now, this one's kind of pretty, right? During this era, Hakeem just couldn't get over the hump. He couldn't get to the I know he won 2, but he never played Jordan in the 90s. In the 80s, he was thwarted early on by Bird's Celtics, and he never really got to play versus Jordan in the finals, and kind of goes under the radar for the career he's had, even though I believe, in my opinion, he's probably if I had to have a center on my team, I would probably pick Hakeem. He could just do everything. His foundational post work that is carried over in today's game and into all the greatest post moves, there's a little bit of the dream in there, especially in today's game. And unfortunately for him, he played in the era of Michael Jordan. So I'm sure he was thinking all throughout the 90s, what a time to be alive. For my number 7 album player, I have Views as Tim Duncan, the big fundamental. This one's a little murky, but hear me out. Views is kind of Drake's staple. It came out, it sold the most records, it sold over 1 million records in the first week, and it was kind of his biggest promise to date, and it was kind of underwhelming. I think that's fair to say. Definitely not his best album, and definitely overlong a little bit. But still sold the most, and some people definitely will say it's his best album, it's most commercially successful, yada yada yada. I have it ranked 7th. Timmy Duncan, I got you 7th. I think you lasted a little long, even though you played great in the last couple seasons. But you know, Tim Duncan was just a foundationally sound, nothing showy, nothing. I mean, we all know Tim Duncan. He wasn't flashy. He transcended the early 2000s superstars and actually won another ring in 2014. Really, that team really encapsulated what he meant to the Spurs and that whole Spurs system for this past 20 years. Love Tim Duncan. Don't love Views as much, but that's just how this is working. My number 6 and my number 5 album player. In both instances, they work hand in hand. For my number 6 and my number 5, and I won't tell you the order yet, I got Larry Bird and Magic Johnson and Scorpion and Thank Me Later. Now, Thank Me Later and Scorpion, they are kind of the bookends right now. They're both ends of the spectrum when thinking of Drake's career. His first major label debut and his latest solo work. Thank Me Later is a little doesn't really know what it wants to be yet, but there's a lot of great songs on it and really still holds up. I think we don't give it as much credit because Take Care is what came out right after it and kind of just made it look like like amateurish almost, because Take Care is so fully realized and such a better artistic album, I think, and I think Drake even said as such, making it. So, and Larry Bird versus Magic, who do you put higher? How do you know? I know, you know, Magic won more championships, but Bird won those MVPs throughout, those 3 straight MVPs, and who's better? At the end of the day, it's just a toss-up, and just like how I really love Scorpion. I know it just came out. I think it's got everything, you know, 10 classics of just 10 of these. He can, you know he can just do what we all, you know, some of us want him to do, but Drake does what Drake it's his world almost. Hip hop is kind of his landscape to shape. And so he kind of did that with Scorpion. I respect it. I know we're still dealing with the Pusha Drake backlash, and that's where we are right now. But 10 years from now, when we look back at this album, I think I'm gonna have it kind of here as well. I have it 5th, and I have Thank Me Later 6th, just like I have Magic 5th and Larry Bird 6th. So that's my album players for 5 and 6. My number 4 all-time album player, I have the OG himself versus the OG itself. So Far Gone as Bill Russell. Now, So Far Gone for me was a seminal project. I kind of was listening to it as it came out and was really excited for Drake and Young Money and yada, yada, yada. I think going back and looking at it, some of his hungriest, most passionate, and also fully formed, everything we come to know about Drake, you can find the best examples of on So Far Gone, whether it's Successful or Uptown or Houston, Atlanta, Vegas, or even his more experimental stuff like Little Bit, I believe it's Like He Lee. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. So Far Gone, my point is like the OG, the foundation, what we would come to see from Drake in the next decade. Similarly, Bill Russell, the biggest winner of all time, sets the precedent, Bill Russell, for winning. We named the championship MVP after him. Bill Russell, the OG basketball guru, star, winner, faced adversity and was resilient through it, and one of the all-time great players, one of my father's favorite players, so I was hearing all about him when I was growing up, so he's got a special place in my heart. Anyway, So Far Gone, I thought this was a beautiful matchup. So my number 3 album player, I have, if you're reading this is too late, as Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. I'll just say this. When 0 to 100 came out, and I know it's not if you're reading this, but I believe it was right before, that was to hip-hop what Kareem's Skyhook was to the NBA. Okay, 0 to 100 and the Skyhook. I believe they're kind of similar when talking like this. I don't really know what else to say. I mean, if you're reading this too late, kind of out of nowhere, I mean, there's not a great comparison between him and Kareem, that album and Kareem, but I have it as Drake's 3rd best album, and I got Kareem, the scoring champ. I got him as the 3rd best player. I got him as the most devastating offensive player of all time with the Skyhook, and he just had the most longevity. I think Kareem gets underrated as the years go by, but incredible. Go read some Kareem. All right, great writer. Anyway, that brings me to my number 2 and my number 1 album players of all time currently, right now. I forget whatever. But right now, this is how it is. For my number 2, greatest album player of all time, I got Nothing Was the Same as LeBron James. And yes, I know, LeBron played karaoke off Thank Me Later after he won his first championship in the Miami locker room. But, don't think about it too much, all right? Just hold on, we're going home to Cleveland. All the stuff, all right? LeBron, he is Nothing Was the Same. Now that I've kind of already let you know, Take Care's the GOAT to me, Michael Jordan's the GOAT, and similarly, Nothing Was the Same is a little more refined than Take Care. Nothing Was the Same kind of trim the fat and is maybe more efficient and maybe does things better, but just like why LeBron to me is not greater than Jordan is because you can be a better player, but the greatness, the transcendent effect, impact you have on your genre or your sport, whatever, I always think Take Care is just going to be a greater album than Nothing Was the Same. So I have LeBron right now as my 2nd best player of all time, and I got Nothing Was the Same as my 2nd favorite Drizzy album right now. And that brings us to number 1. I already spoiled it for you. I think a lot of people share this view probably in both regards. My number one album player of all time is Drake's 2011 Take Care as Michael Jeffrey Jordan. His airness, King Michael, incredible, dude, Michael Jordan. Anyway, all I got to say about that is, don't Michael Jordan still got the hoop earring in? You know what I mean? I mean, Take Care, all these years later, it's not all these years later, it's like 6 years later. It's the moment Drake takes off. It's Jordan. It's his free throw line dunk. It's his 60-point game in the Garden. But if he would have won that game, Take Care to me is his kind of opus. He had a picture of James Blake on his studio door while recording Take Care, something that no one in the rap game was like even considering. You know, if we remember, it was a lot of Waka Flocka and Lex Luger, and that's kind of where we were at in hip hop. And Take Care just kind of was just so uncompromising and did its own thing. Take Care to me still, I know it's probably overly long, just like Jordan came back to the Wizards, and there might be too many tracks, and it's maybe a little more disorganized than it should be if it came out today. A thing I'd also say about Jordan, about his off-court personality and everything, I think the matchup is actually quite prescient. But Take Care and Michael Jordan, I think, will age kind of the same when thinking about it in this hyper-specific context. But I got Take Care as the GOAT when talking about Drake albums, and I got Michael Jordan as the GOAT, period. So, there you have it. Sprawl 2, all-time greats versus all-time Drakes. That's how I think.